Hello friends, my name is Uglyfish. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before, and today I'm going to do something a little different to the other videos I've made in the past. In my last video, I began trying to make a playthrough series for a game called Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles. For various reasons, mainly my own fault, I haven't been able to upkeep that, but I do have a number of thoughts I would like to share after completing the main questline. Yonder is the story of a shipwrecked character who gets struck in a storm and wakes up in the presence of a great spirit. The spirit tasks you, the character, with finding the missing sprites and using them to clear the encroaching purple fog known as murk, which is threatening to devour the world. Once you've begun this, you then get saddled with the even bigger task of repairing the building which previously kept the murk at bay, a ruin called the Cloud Catcher. Upon repairing the Cloud Catcher, you can make your way into the Old Kingdom, the source of the murk, to discover its origin, and maybe some other things along the way. Progress in Yonder is achieved through developing crafting skills and trading with merchants. Being compared to games like Fable, Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley and Zelda, I'd formed an idea of what I believed Yonder to be before I'd even begun to play the game. In the last video, I repeatedly compared it, possibly unfairly, to Zelda. At the time, the comparisons were based on things like finding pieces of broken up fairy in a box, the shape of some characters' faces, and this shot, which, let's be fair, is very reminiscent of the opening shot of Breath of the Wild. These were very minor and almost petty comparisons, but the game does have one huge similarity to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker: distance. If you've played Wind Waker, there'll be no way you've forgotten the tedious sailing sequences to get from one island to the next. You'll relive them in Yonder, but on land instead of in a talking boat. Crafting a Traveller's Knot gives you some limited fast travel options, and about 3/4 of the way through, I discovered these magical heads which can be used as fast travel points. But in an effort to make you explore, your quests always seem to send you to the other end of the map. This can get very tedious, because unlike Zelda or similar games such as Stardew and My Time at Portia, Yonder has no combat whatsoever. Whether you're travelling from one mission point to the next or just off to collect reagents for whatever you need to craft, there is nothing to break up the journey. I appreciate there doesn't have to be combat for a game to be good. Many games are excellent without you ever having to pick up a sword or gun. But whatever is needed, Yonder doesn't have enough of it. Now, when I began Yonder, I believed it to be a crafting game with a storyline. Instead, Yonder is a story game with almost inconsequential crafting. I've completed the main quest and I haven't even started tailoring or cooking. You can complete the whole story doing only the most basic crafting, and you won't be hit too hard if you don't ever craft again. In fact, most of the things I crafted in the playthrough I only crafted to make money so I could trade merchants for other crafting reagents. Different traders offer different amounts of items, so it felt wise to stock up on certain items like glue and water whenever you could, because there was no guarantee you'd find them easily again. I understand making items scarce, but making very basic items scarce seems very counterproductive, seeing as most other items aren't actually needed to complete the game anyway. Collecting things is a big part of Yonder, be it flora, fauna, reagents, lost cats, which has confused me, and sprites. And in fact, with no combat, collecting these things is the only thing which breaks up the tedious travel. Collecting sprites was implied to be vitally important in terms of clearing the murk and saving the world, and the amount of murk that you disperse depends on how large your sprite collection is. This implies that you must collect sprites, and that behind the murk are some seriously exciting things, right? Not quite. Behind the murk, you'll probably find shampoo, a one-off cosmetic item which changes your hair colour. Despite the spirit's message, clearing the murk doesn't seem to have a huge impact on the game. A few paths are blocked by it, but for the most part, you can pass by the murk with no problem. That being said, clearing a percentage of the murk increases the fertility of your farming land, so surely it's worth doing. Well, That all depends on if you think farming is worth doing. Farming requires you to clear land and craft pens and plots and befriend animals like groffles to have them produce a tradable item regularly. However, the items you need to craft this, such as the pens, the troughs and the feeders, generally give you more trading value than the groffle milk you'll receive from your farm. Is it worth wasting all those reagents for some milk? I'd say no, especially when the amount of milk produced is inconsistent. And that segues me on nicely to Yonder's time. Again, I could be wrong here, but like most things in Yonder, the passage of time seems very inconsequential. There was a Halloween event at one point, but other than that, I'm not sure of any differences that came about as a result of time and seasons passing. If time passed by slowly and had no real effect other than cosmetic, that would be fine. It would be a bit odd, but it would be totally acceptable. Instead, time passes by very quickly and the daytime is practically rapid. The lack of nightlights make anything after sunset almost nightmarishly dark. And despite your helpful lantern with its warming glow, nighttime becomes almost impossible to navigate in. The terrain becomes indistinguishable. Materials and animals vanish, and paths and passageways become hidden in shadow. At first I wondered if it was just my television, but even in handheld mode the game can be very difficult to see. And for a game that offers very little anyway, half of your gameplay time being almost impossible to see in is slightly unforgivable to say the least. But at least you have quest markers to tell you where to go, right? Yes, to some extent. Sometimes quest markers are right over the point, and while finding your way in the dark might be difficult, you can generally get around easily. Terrain isn't too much of a problem in terms of getting from A to B. While certain mountain passes might look like you can't go through them initially, some strategic jumping, a la Skyrim, will eventually take you to the top of the mountain, whether that's the way you're supposed to go or not. Sometimes quest markers highlight an area for you to search through, which is also very helpful. However, some quest markers stay right over the quest giver, and the lack of consistency is quite frustrating, especially when Yonder doesn't explain much to you anyway. At first I did wonder why Yonder doesn't explain much to you, but as time went on it was obvious. And this is going to sound very bad, but it's because very little in Yonder actually matters. Villages are filled with interesting buildings which house no one and can't be entered. The villages themselves have nothing of consequence to say. While the map displays a key showing how fertile the land is based on your actions, farming has no impact on the game. The game has one main quest, and if you don't do a single side quest, you wouldn't miss out at all. Side quests seemingly grant you nothing of importance, so you're completing them for completion's sake, which, again, is fine if that's what drives you. But if you're not a 100% person, there's no need to bother. This video isn't all doom and gloom though, it's just easier to point out the small frustrating things. In terms of what Yonder does well, it's absolutely stress-free. With no health, no levelling, no time limit pressures, you can wander through Yonder at a leisurely pace without worrying you'll miss any deadlines. The main storyline, though did seem rushed at the end, is very sweet. Throughout the land are very easily missable diaries which give a clue as to where the game is going, but even without those hints the conclusion felt very satisfying and very cheerful. The environment is expansive, and while sometimes it felt like more guidance would have been good, it was nice to be constantly surprised about the changing landscape. Flora and fauna were very well designed, and the game in general is incredibly pretty. I'm not sure how to explain this, but it's not like you're playing a game in some ways. It's as if you're moving through a children's book. I'm glad I finished Yonder despite what this review might imply. It was a peaceful little game and it gave me a break from very toxic games like League of Legends. But my overwhelming feeling is that if I hadn't planned to make this YouTube video, I honestly don't think I would have finished the game. That is a shame, but it is the truth. Too many things were too annoying with too little reward, and I'm not sure the remaining quests are enough to drag me back in. I can't honestly say I'd ever recommend this game directly to anyone, but if you're looking to buy it, I wouldn't want to put you off either. I'm almost totally neutral about my experience with Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles. Maybe I played it wrong. Maybe I should play it through again now with more knowledge of what the game is, but even with hindsight, I can't see myself enjoying the game any more than I have done. But I would like to emphasise that something about Yonder is charming enough that I really want to say well done to the studio. It's a very endearing game that has a real beauty to it. It's a game to be enjoyed rather than challenged by. And my opinion is skewed because I expected and was looking for another Stardew Valley. Yonder has gone its own way and some elements haven't paid off, but it was a refreshing gaming experience. This review is quite contradictory. I know Yonder will be perfect for some people, but those people aren't me. But I also acknowledge that me not liking it doesn't make it a bad game. The flaws of the nighttime darkness, the inconsistency with quest markers, the reagent availability, they are all definitely areas for improvement, but I've forgiven games like Skyrim of a lot worse. I could back and forth over what I think of Yonder for hours. In one sitting, I went from loving the game to being incredibly bored by it, back to loving it. All I would say is, don't go into Yonder with any expectations. The game is not a bad game. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And that's my problem, not Yonder's. So, to save me rambling on forever, I am going to sign off here. Thank you very much for watching, friends, and I will ask that if you have any game recommendations that could fill the Stardew Valley shaped hole in my heart, please post them down below for me to try. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to see more content from me. And until next time, bye!